Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Dr. Jennifer Lee Disney, and I'm honored to be interviewing Mrs. Mary Carolyn Watson, 1986 winner of the South Carolina Mother of the Year Award. Thank you for being with us here today and for letting us interview you.
Well, thank you for asking us and having us here.
I'm honored to have this conversation. So let me ask you, why don't you just start by telling us when and where you were born and raised, and then tell us maybe a little bit about your family, your education, and your early childhood experiences.
Well, I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on August 24th, 1931. My father had graduated from West Point, and being an Army man, he did, his father had an accident, and he did get back to Bamberg, for which I'm grateful, because he met my mother there. And then after his father had recuperated, we moved around quite a bit. And so I was an Army brat. And when he went back in the service full-time was right before World War II. And so during the time that he was in training and from post to post, we moved quite a bit. But we came back. He went overseas in 1943, January 43, and we moved back to Bamberg, and I've been there ever since. I finished high school in Bamberg and then went to Columbia College and studied there. And when I finished it with a music education major, I taught in the pre-college music department at Columbia College for 3 years. But I can look back and see God's hand all the way through the time. At the second year I was teaching, I felt like I wanted to go into music therapy, and the only place that they had a music therapy program that was recommended by my teachers at Columbia College was in, I believe it was Philadelphia, but it was up there, up north. And I was making plans to go, and my mother had a stroke. And I decided against leaving. I wanted to stay near her. And then when I came back, my husband, future husband, had come to Bamberg in 1954 as a young doctor, and we got together.
So tell me about you've already spoken a little bit about your young adult life and music ed. And before, I was going to ask you how you met your husband. Before we go there, tell me about some of your dreams, goals, and aspirations as a young woman before you were married.
Well, I really had so many people in my life who inspired me that I wasn't always quite sure what I wanted to do because they did all different things. And but I did go into music. For years I said I was going to Lander College because that's where my mother went and my sister went. But my music teacher in Bamberg was very much in favor of Miss Margaret Richards at Columbia College, and very highly recommended. So that's where I went and studied with her. And I just thought I wanted to teach, and wanted to teach piano, as I had enjoyed it so much. I felt like those coming along would enjoy it too.
Did you end up becoming a piano teacher?
What's that?
Did you end up becoming a piano techer?
Yes.
How many years did you teach
Well,
piano?
I did the 3 years in the pre-college at Columbia College, and then when we married in 1956, we hoped and prayed for children, and we had 6, and I did not teach until the children were in school.
If not, if time did.
So, tell me how you met your husband.
Well, the first night that he came to Bamberg, a friend who was also a doctor, knew he was single, and as he and his wife wanted to ask someone to go out with them for a double date, and the doctor who was a friend was a Baptist, and so he asked one of his Baptist friends, and she was busy and couldn't go, so he came on to the Methodist church, and I always said I was second choice, but that was the first night he was in Bamberg we dated.
And the rest is history.
And I had prayed from early years that God would, if I were to be married and have a family, that God would send the right person, and He did. And I feel like I saw His hand just working.
So tell me about the birth. You had 6 children. Tell me about the birth of your children.
Well, when we first got married, my husband said that he would rather not be over 40 when the last one was born. His father was 40 when he was born. He was the baby of 4. And he said he just felt like he didn't have quite as much time with his father as his older siblings did. And so we actually, when we married, we were 25. I was 25 and he was 30. So 10 years, we knew if we were going to have 6, we had to have them in a hurry. So one day before our first anniversary, Mary Beth, our oldest, was born. And then we had the other 5, and the 6th one came 3 months after Mike's 40th birthday. So, but we had 6 in 9.5 years.
Wow.
And so it was a busy time, but a wonderful time.
And you said we knew if we were going to have 6. Was 6 your kind of, that was the
Well,
target? That's what you had
that's
hoped
what
for?
we
That's
what
you
we
wanted?
prayed for. What he said, he didn't know I wanted that many when we got married, but he always wanted children. He was one of 4, and I was one of 3, and we always liked large families. And I just thought 6 would be a wonderful number, and that's what we prayed for. And He answered our prayer,
That's beautiful.
and they've been wonderful ever since. I'm just grateful every day.
So tell us a little bit about, what does motherhood mean to you?
Well, it's a God-given gift, I know that, and it's an honor and a pleasure, and then there are some rough moments sometimes. We had 3 boys and 3 girls, and I do remember one time when our oldest just did not want to clean up her room. It was always such a mess, and I just got a little bit upset about it. And when I complained to my husband about the awful room that she had, he said, "Just close the door." So that's what we did.
I like that. It's a good lesson to choose your battles sometimes, right?
Well, I lost that battle, but she's a pretty good housekeeper now.
That's good. That's beautiful. What did it mean to you to be named the South Carolina Mother of the Year?
It was a real honor, and I felt like there were just so many more deserving mothers in the whole state that I really couldn't quite believe it, but it was a wonderful experience. And I had the chance to meet so many wonderful people through the South Carolina group, and then the national too, as far as that's concerned.
So tell us about some of those activities that you did during your year as the Mother of the Year.
As a result of the Mother of the Year, we did start a young mothers study group, and that was quite a pleasure. We had that for about 5 years, and we had speakers to come in, and the young mothers would come and tell their things that had happened in their lives, and some of the other mothers would join in and give advice or had some of the same problems. And then we had nice speakers that came and gave information, And it was really a wonderful association. And I was able to meet so many, or get to know well so many of the young mothers, because at that point my children were all college age and graduates, so I didn't know as many of the young ones.
Tell us about some of the things your children do. Tell us about some of their occupations and what are they up to, your 6 children?
At the present time, we have actually our oldest daughter is a professor at the University of Illinois in Chicago, Chicago campus, and she's married to a physician in Chicago. She was married and lived in Greenville, and just around the corner, and she actually went to Carol's husband, who was a doctor there. Unfortunately, that marriage did not work, and they were divorced some years later, and that was sad. But she's very happy now and has the job in Chicago. And our second son, our first son, the second child, is a physician in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the third one, Caroline, is went to law school, and she worked for Bell South for a number of years, and she's retired from Bell South and has just moved to Charleston. And our fourth is Cal, who is a lawyer and lives in Columbia, and he is very interested in genealogy and all sorts of things, so he keeps busy. And our next son is a physician, and he was with the World Health Organization in Geneva, Switzerland, and Ankara, Turkey. And he is now back and with the CDC in Atlanta. So we're happy they're all on United States soil. And our youngest is a daughter who lives in Boise, Idaho, and she's a physician there and enjoying that life. And her son is back at Furman University, and he said he wanted to come back where his roots were, and so he's a sophomore there in Furman. But they've all been wonderful.
You must be very proud.
We are very blessed. We're very, very blessed.
You said you had 6 children in 9.5 years, basically. That must have been a very busy time.
Very.
So I wonder if you would talk a little bit about the challenges that you face in terms of balancing, first of all, raising 6 children generally, balancing activities inside the home and outside the home, balancing work and family and church and community activities. Talk a little bit about that.
All the volunteerism that we did was involving the children. So it was mainly church and school, and I did enjoy the music club in Bamberg, and but I had some wonderful students, 2 from Denmark, Bruce too, and they were very talented, just like their mom. But that was a wonderful experience. But I never did teach over 12 at a time in my home, because I just didn't. The time didn't allow it. And
but you taught up to 12 students piano in your home at a time, up to 12?
Up to 12.
That's a lot.
But not always that many.
Right.
When it came to be 12 was when our children were taken from another piano teacher. I didn't think Mom would do too well, and she got sick, and so I inherited them and thoroughly enjoyed them, but I had them also. So, but no, I never did take over 12, and had less than that some years.
Do you consider yourself a working mother?
Yes.
I certainly would.
I had a friend who always introduced me as a mother who did not work out of the home.
But worked a lot in the home.
In the home. That's
In a
right.
lot of ways, a
In
lot of different types of work.
In a lot of ways. I was very fortunate to have some very good help. And she, right now, is one of the nicest elderly black ladies that is one of my best friends.
Oh,
and
that's
she helped
beautiful.
me all through the years, and she calls our children her children.
That's beautiful. Do you think women's work and women's roles as mothers are adequately recognized by society today?
I really, I'm just not sure. They had a program on TV this morning about how things have changed and how children are allowed to walk distances alone, and unfortunately because of that we've had some terrible things to happen. But I think so many times in today's world the mothers have outside jobs and they don't have the time to spend with the children that was such a pleasure to those of us who could. And I feel for them.
That's what we've been talking about. It leads really nicely to my next question, which is to talk about, and you've kind of already done some of this already, what were some of the challenges you faced when you were raising your children in terms of balancing work inside the home with work outside the home and church and other activities? And then how do you think women today, how do you compare that with what women today, the challenges they have to face struggling work inside and outside the home, church, volunteerism, and everything else?
It's a challenge. I earned a nickname years ago when I was playing for the youth choir at the church which our children were in, and it met in the afternoon. And then I raced home to get supper for the family, and my father was living with us at the time, and I wanted to be sure everything was right for that. And then we'd go back to adult choir practice at 7:30, and one day the choir director, when I walked in late, the choir director said, well, he stopped everybody and he said, the late Ms. Watson has arrived. I have not lost that name. I'm still the late Ms. Watson. So I've tried hard, but I still am that.
Well,
But
with everything you were doing, I think it was okay if you were a little late.
Well, what about today?
That's right. It's tough. What do you think are the most important issues facing women today?
Rearing children. And it worries me so much that God has been taken out of schools and out of a lot of life in general. And I saw yesterday, I was reading something about how church membership has gone down, but the largest group are the nuns, Nones, that don't have any relationship with the church. And I think that's the biggest factor today in the way life is going.
And I think I could add, I think your interview would not be complete without Mary Carolyn telling about Dr. Mike Watson, her husband, and his mission in our world.
That's a great question. Would you tell us a little bit about your husband and his work and
He always has been interested in missions, and he felt like if he did not find the right person, that maybe God was telling him not just missions at home, but missions abroad. But we found the right ones, and he and a Methodist minister, George Strait, but George lived in Cope, which was 6 miles from Bamberg, and they both felt like people could give more time to reaching out. And so they met with a number of other people and began the United Methodist Volunteers in Mission. And they went on various mission trips around the world. And in fact, one trip Mike was to take as a doctor to the little island of Anguilla, which is back then was not anything like it is now, but it was just it looked like a snake. It was just long, 3 miles long, but their doctor had left some months before, and they were really in need. And we went, and so we got permission from all the teachers at school for the children to miss those 2 weeks in April. And our youngest child was 3 when we went. That was the most wonderful experience that they still talk about.
So your whole family went
The
to
whole
participate
family went that time.
this
That was the only
missions
time
trip.
the whole family was able to go.
Wow.
But they have gone to a number of countries and have enjoyed doing that. And then they do the next door neighbor as well. So that has
When
worked
you
well.
say they have gone, your husband and some of your children continue to do missions
Well,
trips? Or did throughout
several
their
of the
lives?
children have taken mission trips, right? Our daughter just got back from Cuba with
Wow,
a mission trip with them
that's wonderful.
just not very long ago. And it's been a wonderful experience. And as I said before, you can just see God's hand in all of it.
Mm.
It's been wonderful to
That's
look back
beautiful.
on everything.
Let me ask you this. What does feminism mean to you? When you hear the word feminism, what does that make you
Well,
think
to
of?
me, it means having a family and rearing a family and home activities. But in the paper just recently, I saw the women who had just built a home with reaching out, the homes that are being built for needy people, but a group of women did it. Also, the first general in the United States Army was inducted, and so everybody has a different gift and a different outlook, and if we're all made differently, and so it can be in a lot of directions. But for me personally, it's home and family and children.
So, in other words, if I hear you, what I hear you saying, feminism allows women and men to kind of find those gifts
Exactly.
and pursue those gifts to
That's
the best of their ability and to the best of their God-given ability.
Right. That's right.
That's beautiful. Do you consider yourself a feminist?
Well, if feminism is home and family and church and friends, yes.
That's beautiful. I love that. Does anybody in our group have any questions they'd like to ask to our Mother of the Year winner from 1986?
All of that was very interesting, though, to hear it again, from a standpoint from being on the committee, and then just hearing you speak with your heart about this whole situation.
And I would like to say the committee, the search committee, all the members that I have met have been outstanding, just wonderful. And they worked hard. And the book that Martha and Shirley put together is unbelievable. Really, y'all did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
And all the luncheons and the teas and everything that you did were
We
outstanding.
have wonderful honorees. Could I make a few remarks about my memories of Mary Carolyn, because I knew her early,
Sure.
as
Should we get you on camera?
or just my voice will be
Or just
fine.
your voice? If you
But
come,
Can you
just
can
come
I
a little
be heard?
closer. Yeah.
Well, I think I told you a little while ago that I was looking for a piano teacher that would be a good piano teacher for my children, because I felt like one particularly might have some talent. I must say, I've looked in 2 or 3 counties. I was willing to drive because we're in a rural area and it's not real hard to find professionals like that. So I was told of Mary Carolyn Watson. And I said, I don't know Mary Carolyn. Well, my friend said, well, I know her because she lives in Bamberg, where my mother lives. And she said, she can be seen walking down the street in Bamberg, and she will have 5 or 6 little children following behind her like little ducks. And she might have her hair might not be brushed that day, and she might be a little busy, but she's never in a hurry. They might be looking at something, a book that they are looking at, or they might be looking in a store window, but she's never in a hurry, and you'll see her with her children. That sounded like a pretty good recommendation, because I knew piano teachers, good piano teachers for beginners, need to love children. And so I was all aboard for Mary Carolyn Watson to be the piano teacher for my children. Then later, when I made the drive to Bamberg every week for probably about 5 or 6 years with both children, I had the honor of sitting in her den and listening to the piano lesson going, but also listening to things that were going on in her home. Because at that time, she had one daughter who was in high school, maybe a senior. She had one son who would come in from Clemson, and he was a football player. And they were on the road going to football games, and between that and the high school senior, and I remember hearing the phone ring, and Aurelia, her daughter, said, I don't think I can go with you to do that on Saturday night. No, I don't think so. No, my daddy wouldn't like that idea. And I thought, how wonderful. I hope my children can use me as an excuse not to do something that someone else suggests. And the other thing I remember is in the kitchen was a map of the world. In the little town of Bamberg, there was a map of the world spread across the wall. And I think they brought the world to the little town of Bamberg, and I thought, how wonderful. And Mary Carolyn was a role model for me in many ways, because she would say things like, you know, children do need dreaming time. It's okay not to be busy every moment. They need to have time to dream. And the story she told about closing the door, she told me that one too. So it probably helped our family to be happier, maybe not, because I also had a very messy daughter. So those are my remarks about Mary Carolyn. And then one more thing, I was, while she was teaching my children, I was asked by an organization to write a letter of recommendation for her for South Carolina Mother of the Year, little knowing that I would even know the committee, much less have a chance to serve on the committee. So I attended Mary Carolyn received the honor, and I was able to attend a tea at the governor's mansion in her honor, and it was happy and wonderful, and everybody was so happy to be able to honor Mary Carolyn.
And did you say it was some of the children that asked you to write this letter of
No,
recommendation?
I believe her church sponsored her.
That's
We have
wonderful.
associations that sponsor a mother and invite them to enter for selection. So I was asked by, I believe, her church.
That's wonderful. Thank you for adding that. It's nice to hear memories. Other people talk about your legacy, right, and you being a role model to them. How does that make you feel hearing Boo talk about that?
Very humble. I can't believe it. I did not know all of that. All those conversations in the kitchen. But talking about the world, the map of the world, I remember that my husband said as we were rearing the children, he said, well, now we have to give them roots so they'll know how to live, and wings so they'll know how to fly. And when we had the one in Turkey and Idaho and Chicago and We did have two in South Carolina, but I said if I had known how far they were going to fly, I think I would have clipped a few.
I think it's beautiful. I'm so glad you mentioned the map of the world. This idea that you had that, like you brought the world to Bamberg, and that you did. That's a beautiful sentiment. Roots to know how to live, and wings to fly. It sounds like you've prepared your children in such beautiful ways.
Thank you. We had a wonderful help upstairs.
So, do you have any questions for us, or any comments, anything additional you would like to add?
I would like to tell you about the one project that the group did that has been so meaningful, and that's they like for you to reach out in one way, if not others, were books for babies. And actually, at that time, this was I believe just been about 3 years, hadn't it? 4. No, it's been longer than that. It's longer than that. It was when I was president, whatever that was. But the library in Bamberg was a place that people could drop off books that were used that for any group that wanted to take them to children. And in Bamberg, we have what they call First Steps, and they visit new babies once a week and take a book to the new baby and books for the older children in the family. And at drop-off points, Boo was one of them. We asked her in Denmark to do that, and Dean Risha, who was the vice president at the time, in Camden, and Joyce Rainey in Orangeburg, who was a 2005 mother, I believe. But anyhow, but it was most successful, and the thing I remember most about that was a little boy from Springfield found out about his mother was gathering books to bring to the Bamberg Library to be distributed. And he found out about it, and he went through all of his books, and everything that he had finished with, he put in a big box, and he brought to the Bamberg Library himself.
Wow.
With his mother when she brought hers. That was one of the most meaningful things that happened during that time, as far as I was concerned.
That's beautiful. And this was a project of the South Carolina Mothers Association.
Yes,
right?
it was recommended they had that recommendation from the American mothers, but the South Carolina group wanted to reach out in at least one way. And the other ways were the ABC quilts for the children, and knitted little hats and things, and prayer shawls. Those were other ways, but we chose the books.
That's great.
And it was very successful, and the churches joined in. We had time with especially Trinity and First Baptist and your church. Didn't it? A lot of them joined in and gathered quite a few books, and we would pick them up from the library. There was a big box there, and people would just come and bring them, knowing that reading is so important to a child. It'll be something they'll do the rest of their lives if they get started.
As a college professor, and knowing this interview will be deposited at the Louise Pettis Archives at Winthrop University, I am so pleased that you shared that story. Because sometimes, the art of reading a book, because of the internet and technology, sometimes people forget to put their hands on a book and read it. And the younger you start that with children in pre-K, it's so important. It's so important.
It definitely is. It definitely is.
I just want to say we're coming up on your 30th anniversary. 2016 will be the 30th anniversary of your Mother of the Year award. That's a big deal. You have to do something to celebrate.
Well, it's been 30 wonderful years. It really has, and this is a marvelous group of ladies, and I really and truly couldn't. It just was wonderful.
Thank
To
you
get
so
to know
much.
them, and you're doing such a wonderful job at Winthrop with this. Boo was telling me all about it on the way, and I'm just so pleased that that's happening, because it needs to be.
Well, thank you. It's the least that we can do to recognize and record and remember the work of powerful women and powerful mothers in our state. And just thank you for all that you have done and given to us. And congratulations on your 30-year anniversary
Well,
as
thank
Mother of the
you.
Year.
That tells my age pretty much. I will be
It tells
84
your-
this summer.
It tells your staying power. That's what it tells, your staying power.
Oh goodness! But my husband has written 2 books, and they kind of get not the mother. I mean, not American mothers, but the volunteers in mission part, and medicine, and his that kind of thing.
That's
Those
wonderful.
books have been added to Mary Carolyn's things at Winter. If
That's
they haven't,
wonderful.
they need to be,
Oh.
I think
If they
we've tried
haven't,
to
we
add.
have given you some forms, some paperwork from the archives. If you find things in your and your husband's life that you would like to donate to the archives that other students can read from and learn from about your histories and your lives together, please do so. We'll find a way. We'll get it with either to Martha or Shirley or me coming back down or Boo bringing it up. We'd like to add anything you want to contribute to the archives.
Well, I have plenty of things saved, but I
So
don't think
think
you
about
want
it.
most of them.
Well, we'll see. Go through it. We'll think
Most of
about
them
it.
need to
We'll
go
go
in the
through all
trash.
that. Don't trash anything. We'll take it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And I want to say again what a wonderful group of ladies have served on the search committee.
Well, it
And
was our pleasure too to read
Well-
about all the wonderful mothers. We
well,
were just astounded.
all of you should have been
And it
mothers
was
of the
just
year. Every one of
Pleasure,
you.
and it wasn't just reading the name and reading things that they had done. We actually met them, visited in his hometown, and had a lot of people to tell us all about on a personal basis on these people. So they were really handpicked, right?
And that's what we're going to talk about now. Ann Edwards said it was wonderful mothers selecting wonderful mothers, so it worked out. Well, so thank you, Mary Carolyn.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
all
you
you're
for your
doing, and
time.
thank you.